It's about how energies flow. It's only a rediscovery of what was done for centuries. We can actually create much more healing spaces, spaces which are more productive, where we can actually feel a lot more happier. Proof is in our history. These buildings are really strong and they can last for centuries.
Hey, you are listening to Dream 100 Business Show podcast with Savita Hosamane. Our mission at Dream 100 Business Show is to help business owners move to the next level in their personal growth and business growth brand journey. In this episode, we talk to Mrs. Jaya Rayaprolu, who is the founder of Design Harmony. Now, let's get to the story of the person behind the brand. When I visit temples, which are more than 1,000 years old, I am amazed by these structures which have stood the test of time. It makes me wonder, how did they arrive at this kind of architecture? My meeting with Jaya happened few years ago, and I had very briefly got introduced to eco-friendly designing, but was not actually aware of the depth of benefits that eco-friendly architecture can bring to our new and existing houses as well. This meaningful conversation with Jaya unfolds all the secrets behind this beautiful architecture. Jaya's passion for eco-friendly architecture stems from her childhood days, as she grew up listening to her father's stories, which was embedded with love for nature. She fondly recollects her father using riverside clay as soaps, and she says that she too had a chance to experience this amazing gifts of nature when she visited her hometown. And this inspired her to integrate her passion in her profession as well. She even chose the same subject of sustainable architecture in her thesis project as well. So let's hear it out from her, how she works closely with clients in Design Harmony to create environmentally conscious solutions that are both beautiful and functional. So let's get started now. Welcome to Dream 100 Business Show, Mrs. Jaya. It's truly an honor and pleasure to have you on our show.
Thank you so much, Savita. It's a pleasure for me as well.
We have been hearing about the term WWW, but today we are defining differently about WWW, where we say it is weather management, waste management, and water management. So can you just give a bit of insight of what these terminologies stand for?
Yeah, sure, Savita. So this is something that I have coined it myself, because what I realized is in the process of doing architecture a lot more meaningfully. So the vision of my firm is to actually be a catalyst for a conscious, holistic living. And, we do that through meaningful innovation. In the process, what I realized is the first thing we try to manage when we're designing buildings is the weather. We try to make the spaces that we create a lot more thermally comfortable and basic shelter requirement, which is a protection against weather. So weather management, I would say. The next thing that we do is, of course, management of the water. Also, we incorporate, like how do we incorporate rainwater? We can recycle the used water, like grey water, that is termed as grey water. The wash water from kitchens and bath, that's termed as the grey water. So, and then we also do a management of the black water. So the water which comes, or the sewage which comes from our toilet, that's referred to as the black water. So managing of all of these things, we incorporate these services into the building structure. So that's why it becomes something of a water management and waste management. So waste management, of course, is to do with both the wastewater plus the solid waste. And we can actually do a regeneration of our own waste, which is the green waste. We can convert it into golden compost, which can be used either in individual houses or even for larger complexes for the landscaping and gardening. Yeah, wow. So that's what is WWW. And that's where we come from. Yeah.
So now what is this eco-friendly architecture or sustainable architecture? Where does that fit into this picture?
Okay. So the word sustainability or sustainability architecture, being eco-friendly, there are a lot many more terms which are all, buzzwords. Basically, it stems from the fact that, construction itself, when you're creating any building or any built space, we are actually destroying some part of nature. So it is not that we can create something positively without damaging anything. So the first thing we need to do is dig a foundation, which means we're damaging the local soil there, the environment there. Some people may be removing trees, or even if we are not removing trees, we are damaging the trees. We are creating some amount of damage. And no activity of construction can take place with zero damage. So there is some amount of damage always happening due to construction related activity. Then how is it that, we can still call it a development? So a development has to be something positive, right? It's not something sabotaging and damaging, and then we call it development. The infrastructure projects or all the projects that we do. Unfortunately, the terminology given is development. So if we truly have to call it as development, then it needs to be something which is less damaging. Then what is it that we can do which is least damaging to the environment? That is step one. And the second is also, how can we actually use resources which are minimal, which are locally available, and which will in turn cause less damage to the environment and to people and to other beings in the environment. So if we are very conscious about these things and we incorporate these principles into the development of any project, which is it could be really related to infrastructure, or when it is architecture, which is again part of the infrastructure, the buildings, which could be houses, it could be commercial projects, it could be any type of typology of building. But the same rule applies. And when we incorporate these principles, that's what I call as sustainable architecture, because then the activity is a little more sustainable compared to going all out and not bothering about these things, which is what seems to be the norm of the day right now.
Yeah. So when we want to construct a house, let's say, so the land is there, and you said the foundation, we start digging, then a lot of mud comes out. What do we do with this mud? Can we reuse this mud in any way?
The soil which is dug up from the sites, we actually convert them into mud blocks or rammed earth constructions. We can use up the mud itself in making buildings. And contrary to popular perception, these buildings are really strong and they can last for centuries. There is no problem as far as longevity is concerned. There are, of course, many other benefits, like again, we're talking about the weather management. So there is a lot of thermal comfort as well when it comes to using mud as a construction material for walls and even for roofs. The thermal comfort inside is a lot more. You feel warmer in winter and cooler in summer. That's the advantage of using mud as a wall material.
So in that case, let's say if it is an apartment which we need to construct, will that amount of soil or the mud be enough for a 30 or a 40-story building?
So here actually in such buildings, typically you have 2 floors of basements or sometimes 2 or 3 floors of basements. In fact, there's a huge quantum of soil which is actually removed and it's not used otherwise. But today we even have manufacturers who are making mud blocks and they're available ready-made. Just like you have table molded bricks or you have concrete blocks, we now have people who are actually making these mud blocks as a construction material. They're also using, or we can use them on the site itself for our own building. To the extent possible, we can make use of this soil. Of course, we will have to dig out soil, but we generally dig out, let's say, from ponds. We have to create pond. Anyways, we dig out the soil. We can make use of that soil. The difference is this is not baked. These are sun-dried, and those are baked. So there is less energy used in the making of these bricks. And in the process, not only is less energy used, it's also a lot more eco-friendly because the life cycle, it can go back to its original form. Baked bricks, once it's baked, it can never go back to its original form.
And what is the other advantage of using these mud bricks? Will it have an impact on our health, our way of life?
Absolutely. So in these type of constructions, what we do is generally we do not plaster the walls. If at all we plaster, it's a choice. We can do mud plaster. And in the process of making these blocks themselves, what we do at our firm specifically is we also incorporate and use many herbs. We use Ayurvedic herbs in the making of these bricks,
Wow.
and which actually adds to the disinfectant properties as well as the healing property. So, and these are again techniques which are very age old and they've been proven. The usage of these herbs themselves is not something that is my discovery. It's only a rediscovery of what was done for centuries.
Wow.
So that way, we can actually create much more healing spaces which are more productive, where we can actually feel a lot more happier. And they would also create environments which are a lot more healing, I would say, and very aesthetically pleasing and beautiful.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
can you give an overview of the type of people or the type of projects that you have done using sustainable or eco-friendly architecture?
Yeah, residences have been one which is where the number of people who are wanting to use these kind of alternate technologies have been much more. And apart from residences, even in the hospitality sector, so it could be for resorts and even institutions like schools, there also we have been incorporating this. But I would not restrict the eco-friendly architecture to just these materials. Materials is just one component. It's not just the mud bricks which will make something eco-friendly or sustainable. There are many, many more factors. So it's all of those put together which make something sustainable. It could be it would be in terms of the design principles which are used. It is there is something, a term called embodied energy. So when we, let's say we use cement or something, the product itself, the material comes with a lot of embodied energy. What that means is by the time the cement actually reaches our site of construction, it has already consumed many calories of energy in terms of carbon footprint in its manufacture, in the transport. It's manufactured somewhere and then it's transported here, and so there is a lot of energy already consumed in its making, and by the time it reaches our site there is a huge embodied energy there. So that's also one factor. So we try and minimize the use of such materials and use alternate materials for those as well.
So, what about the life of these buildings? How are they compared to the usual conventional buildings that we have been following for a very long time?
Yeah, very good question. Uh, Actually speaking, you will be surprised to know the life is actually much longer. Uh,
Oh.
and yeah, the proof is in our history. You look at our old temples, you look at our old palaces, you look at even many old courtyard houses. They used what we today call as alternative technologies. They all used stone, mud, natural materials. They used lime. Cement is hardly 200 years old. And, the life of concrete is hardly 50 to 70 years. But you go back and study the palaces in Rajasthan or Chettinad down south, anywhere, we have had standing examples of buildings which are thousands of years old.
Wow.
Not only are they thousands of years old, they're very comfortable till today. The minute you enter a palace or even a courtyard house, you feel actually very comfortable. You don't feel the heat. You enter on a hot summer day. It actually feels very cool once you enter. They use these principles, our ancestors. For some reason, despite all the technology that we have developed, we left those principles. So I would say we should embrace technology, but not by leaving our tested and proven principles and reinventing the wheel over there, but adding on to that. Then, we get the benefit of both the worlds.
Wow. You mean to say that we need not have to use air conditioners? We can get that coolness because when I have visited Rajasthan palaces and they're not using ACs over there, and still it is
Absolutely.
very, very cool. So can we bring in the
Yeah,
same to our houses as well? No need of ACs.
absolutely, absolutely, totally. So
Wow.
there are passive solar design principles like stack effect. We can create, wind tunnels or something called stack effect, where you create how the air movement is actually going to take place inside the house. So it will create that thermal comfort. We have to design our openings inside the building. The windows or doors are not just placed randomly without any thought. They all need to be, a thought needs to be put into how they are designed. So when they are strategically placed in such a way, both in terms of how they are located, both height-wise and in, horizontally in plan, then what happens is the airflow is also regulated. We can even simulate all of these things using computers. So that's where
Mhm.
actually you can actually use technology to our benefit, and we can simulate something to predict what the effect is going to be inside.
Wow.
And that would be a positive use of technology.
Mhm.
Once we
Awesome.
do that, we can create these thermally comfortable spaces even
Mhm.
today.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what about now air is taken care of and then the temperature is taken care of. What about sunlight?
Oh, wonderful. I mean, see, in these kind of buildings where such a conscious thought is given to all of these factors, you can take it for sure that, the sunlight is one of the major factors which is going to be considered. The orientation of where the spaces are placed becomes very, very important. So, how do you actually locate a living space or a bedroom space or a staircase space, a toilet space? You locate it in such a way that not just as per Vastu, which is, again, energy based, it is along with Vastu, we also consider the sunlight, the sun path during a day and during the different seasons. Based on this, these spaces are located. The kind of openings which are given are also located using these principles. Then you actually end up bringing in nature into the house. You have well lit spaces without glare, well lit spaces without heat, and you can actually see shadow patterns of sun during the day as well. So
Mhm.
that's one way
Wow.
of actually even maintaining the connect with nature. So while
Wow.
indoors, you can actually still maintain the connect with nature with the way the sun path actually casts these shadows.
Mhm. Amazing. So now that the interiors are taken care of, what about the landscape? How do you bring in this eco-friendliness in the landscapes which are available?
Okay, so this is what we call as from our office. What we do is a blurring of the indoors and the outdoors. So
Mhm.
it's not something rocket science for us to know that we feel happiest when we are in connect with nature. All
Absolutely.
of us, we love going out on holidays. We love going out. So then,
Mm.
that connect with nature is what is actually going to make us really be at our best, at our productive best, and be happy. So that being the case, it makes sense to actually bring in the elements of nature with plants and both indoors and outdoors. So we integrated what we do in our firm is we integrate the architecture, interiors, and the landscape. And in addition to that, what we also do is include native and medicinal plants in our landscape, not just ornamental. The ornamental is very much taken care of. But in addition to being ornamental, they also have a value add. So rather than having an exotic palm tree which may not attract any kind of bee or butterfly or some native species of insects or birds, we can incorporate native plants, both it could be palm variety, it could be climbers, it could be undershrubs. We incorporate native plants which have medicinal properties,
Wow.
which can be used in our day-to-day life, both
Mm.
in our kitchen and as well as for healing. At the same time, they're very beautiful. They attract the natural, locally available species of birds and insects. So there is so
Mhm.
much of a value add in doing this kind of landscape.
Wow. So when you invite people for tea, you can just add a dash of mint and fresh tulsi and give. And
Totally. Yeah, not just add a dash, but you can ask for, would you want to have, a lemongrass tea, or you can have a mint tea or something else, and you can do it right there. Yes.
wow. And I think even in offices also, if they incorporate such things, people will
Yeah.
be more refreshed while doing their work as well as they'll give their best. Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So that reminds me about our current commercial project that we are doing. So where actually our office goers will be able to go pluck their own vegetables before
Wow.
going. So we are incorporating urban farming into this commercial building, and we are
Mm.
making an attempt to make it totally without air conditioning. And they have the connect with nature while sitting at their desk, and at the same time they grow their own veggies or greens and
Mm.
take them home. That's something we are making an attempt at.
Wow. So it is just like plucking your own fruits and vegetables and going home.
That's right. It's an ongoing project. I'm eagerly waiting for it.
When we know that there are so much of benefits, and I feel that there is lack of awareness, what do you think are the challenges which people have in adapting to this kind of 100% positive sustainable architecture?
Okay, couple of reasons. I think first is, I think, the timelines. The kind of lifestyle that we are all leading. Everything from the way we use our gadgets in the kitchen to whatever we are doing outside. It's all determined or
Instant.
directed by the sense or the notion that we have something to achieve and we have to run, and we have a timeline that we need to keep to, which is what is pushing us to doing everything using shortcuts, while we all know that a hand ground masala which is used for sambar is far more tasty compared to one which is ground in a mixer. We still go for the mixer, right? So it's not easy. It's all one is the mindset regarding the timeline, and the second, I would say, is from the professional fraternity themselves, like architects and all those who are in the industry. We need to promote this a lot more to create that awareness, because a lot of people are not even aware. It's one
Mm.
thing to say that I don't want to use stone ground masala. It's another thing to not even be aware that probably the stone ground masala is tastier. So there
Mm.
are not many people who are even aware that there are alternative methods. So,
Mm.
and that I think is a responsibility of professionals in this industry who need to bring this awareness to lay people who are not in the industry. And then
Mm.
only, they more and more people are going to be actually opting for it. And what I have seen in the last decade or so, those numbers of people who are actually opting for it, as well as the awareness itself, has increased tremendously.
Wow.
Today, a lot many more people are aware of where our environment is heading. They're a lot more conscious. People want to adopt a greener lifestyle, and especially after the pandemic, it's a complete turnaround.
Mm.
Those numbers have increased, so it's
Wow.
in a way, I think it's been for our good.
Awesome. Well, there are few of us who already have constructed houses. So, and it is not easy for us because we have already invested a lot. So, what are the ways where people with existing houses can incorporate this sustainable lifestyle or architecture?
Very good question, Savita. I think for individual houses, it's not a big challenge. So once they are like 15 years old or 10, 15 years old, many people anyways go for a renovation.
Mm.
And when they are renovating, at that phase, we can definitely intervene and create solutions which will make it a lot more eco-friendly. Uh, we can bring in the natural element even now at that stage. So it could be in terms of how we are creating new openings or changing certain materials in some areas. Some people expand and construct, a new floor. In
Mm.
all these also, we can actually definitely intervene a lot when it comes to individual houses. The challenge is more when it comes to apartments. There
Mm.
also something is possible, but it is limited to, it's more limited to what you can do in the inside of the apartment. And
Mm.
maybe if the association permits the minimal changes with respect to what you can do on the periphery, the openings, and we can definitely incorporate services though, like
Mhm.
services like solar power generation, or how do you recycle the water, how do you incorporate and save rainwater and use it for daily use. Some of the services are very easy to incorporate, but
Mhm.
the structure itself also, it is possible for independent structures. For apartments also, it's possible if the entire association wants to go ahead and do it. We
Mhm.
have done it even for some brand new villas where they've been designed without much thought to the this factor, make it more holistic in nature. So we
Mhm.
have done that even for new villas.
Wow, awesome. Everything comes at a cost. So, how cost friendly is sustainable architecture for a common person? Yes.
So the good news is today we are at a cost where it's at par with conventional methods of construction and
Mhm.
designs. That's because of the increase in awareness, more number of players, more number of skilled labor. But there was a period of time, maybe a couple of decades ago, when doing something like this actually turned out more expensive than doing the conventional. But
Mhm.
today, everybody can be actually very happy to know that the costs are almost at par. So,
Mhm.
and if you really wish to, we could even make it lesser than the
Wow.
conventional.
Oh,
Yeah,
that is
that's
real good
possible.
news.
Yeah, it is good news. Yeah.
Mhm. Awesome. But a few of them are Vastu conscious, or they are Vastu addicts, where they feel
Yeah.
all said and done, Vastu has to be there. That has been ingrained into their minds. So, like the way you are saying about this placement of light, sunlight, and then the thermal comfort and all this, does Vastu also fit into your way of architecture as well?
So here, one thing what we need to understand is actually Vastu is not against all of this, or these design principles are not against Vastu. So if you are looking at Vastu from a deeper perspective, from the principle perspective, it's not very different. You will fall in line with Vastu principle. But if you are looking at Vastu from a very superficial perspective,
Hmm.
then it would not fit in. But what we do is actually look at it from a much deeper perspective. So, in terms of deeper in the sense, how do you understand what Vastu is? So, it's much beyond just placement of things in just a certain direction. It's about how energies flow. It's
Hmm.
about, there is a lot of scientific basis behind each and every recommendation. So, if you actually go deeper into those scientific basis behind those recommendations, we actually discover that it's not contrary to what is actually
Wow.
thermally comfortable. And that's
Mm-hmm.
actually the good news. So,
Mm-hmm.
if somebody wants to actually incorporate Vastu in principle, then that's the best. It should automatically actually be holistic as well.
Awesome. How about the maintenance of all these structures? Since we are using natural components, it would obviously require less maintenance.
Or more maintenance. I mean that's your question, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I would say anything which we create as a product,
Hmm.
it could be a building, it could be a table, it could be a pen, pencil, anything
Hmm.
requires maintenance for sure. There is no such thing as no maintenance. But whether the maintenance is low or whether the maintenance is high is the question.
Hmm.
So in certain aspects, I would say the maintenance is actually low when it comes to the alternative, so-called alternative methods. Because in a conventional building, you do concrete blocks and then you plaster and then you paint. But in this type of construction, there is no plastering or painting. So you don't need to keep repainting your buildings every 5 years. So
Hmm.
that's a bit of saving both during construction on that material as well as labor for that
Hmm.
component of the building, as well as during maintenance also that's not there. So that's one aspect of the maintenance. But of course, you will need to maintain in terms of, the cleanliness, the hygiene, and whether something is broken, if there is a damage, that will need to be addressed. So
Hmm.
that is a basic maintenance which any object requires. That is required here also. There is no special additional maintenance which is required.
Mhm.
That's what I would say.
Mhm.
But there is also one more factor, maintenance. We talk about, the running energy bills. So that is also maintenance, a part of our maintenance expenses. How much
Mhm.
is our electricity bill? How much is our water bill? So I
Mhm.
would say in the alternate methods, the maintenance there is actually it's much lesser, and in some
Mhm.
cases even negligible. So you
Mhm.
don't need to actually pay the water bills if you're self-sustained with respect to water. You don't need to pay the electricity bills if you're self-sustained using, solar power generation from your
Mhm.
own structure. So in some of our projects, actually the clients are giving back to the grid.
Wow.
They're not,
Mhm.
instead of paying bills, they're actually getting money. So that
Awesome.
can also happen. So the maintenance in terms of the running energy bills is definitely lesser. But
Awesome.
few things you do need maintenance. Yeah.
Hmm. And earlier days, as we know, our temples and palaces, there was no pollution. But now, with the kind of pollution, even a newly constructed building in a very polluted environment starts looking so bad. How does this sustainable architecture sustain this pollution? And what kind of look do we need to give for it to retain that beauty?
Okay. I would say when it in a regular conventional building where you're painting, unless you paint it every few years, it's actually going to end up looking old and weathered. On the contrary, when you have a stone masonry wall, it's a natural stone, or you have a natural mud masonry wall. Then the look is same whether it's now or after 10 years or 50 years. It's going to look the same. If, on the contrary, it's only going to get cleaner with every rain.
Wow.
That's what is going to happen, right? There is no really, you're not going to put again coats of
Hmm.
paint to make it look new. So they're evergreen and ever new. So that's
Wow.
actually another plus point.
Wow. Amazing. Awesome. So you bring in the culture of the place to the buildings as well when you are doing this kind of architecture.
Yes, yes. So we say, that we take care of the three factors: the environment factor, the human factor, and the cultural factor. So that is something very, very important because sustainability is not just about the materials and the environment. I think it's very, very deep rooted in the way our culture is. So there is a lot of respect for nature in many ancient cultures. It is something which is passed down through generations, how we actually respect. In fact, I remember this story of how in Tibet, what they do is when they dig up the foundations, and I've seen a video of them actually doing this. What they do is take all the earthworms which are coming out during the foundations. They don't want to harm even the earthworms which are there. Take all of those into a bowl, take them safely, and put them in another place,
Wow.
and then continue the construction. Things like this were also followed. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think we need to give a lot of importance to what is actually being told in our ancient cultures. So we can encourage many of the arts and crafts and skills which are there till today. And if we incorporate those as well, so sustainability extends to all of these things as well. It's not just about only materials and our comfort. So
Mm-hmm.
when we take care of this, that's when the whole picture gets complete. So
Mm-hmm.
the
Wow.
culture is not just at that level. It's also something which percolates to our individual family level. What are our habits within our family? Each family, the habits and cultural habits are very different. So we need to look into all of these factors and involve them as well.
Mm-hmm. So, what kind of work culture do you have in your office?
Yeah, it's a very, very open culture. And
Mm.
I would give the credit of this a lot to, Balaji, who runs this liberated entrepreneurship organization. So some of these principles I've learned from him. So what we have is an open culture where everybody is encouraged to take up and do what they are passionate about. So it's all like one family, and all those who are actually in sync with this thought process, we are all together, in it working together. So that's
Mm.
the kind of The culture that we are building is uh, something where everybody is free to come up with their own suggestions and choose what they want to work on. And that's how we do here in our office.
Mhm. Awesome. So, if people want to connect with you and reach out to you to get solutions for their offices or homes, how do they reach out to you?
They can look us up on Google, Design Harmony Bangalore. We have one office in Whitefield. We have another office in Sajapur. So both are there on Google.
So, with this, we almost come to the end of this beautiful conversation. It has been wonderful, wonderful chatting with you and gaining all this amazing insights about what we can do with our daily lives and lead a happy and a healthy life. So,
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much, Savita. It was amazing for me as well to share whatever I can, and get this platform to actually spread this awareness about being a lot more conscious about the choices that we make, both for our lifestyle and our built environment.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Savita.
I thank Mrs. Jaya Rayaprolu for sharing her passion to profession journey in sustainable architecture, which is both challenging and rewarding. Her approach is very scientific, environmental friendly, and affordable for every strata of this society. So, if you are looking for happy, healthy, and holistic living and want to recreate the magic of yesteryear's eco friendly design in your home or office space, then listen to this episode again, as once is not enough. So, let's all do our bit in bringing in awareness about living in harmony with nature for generations to come. Share this episode to someone whom you feel needs to listen and take action now. We at Dream 100 Business Show help business owners in creating an audio profile for their business and thereby a personal brand so that they can reach out to new audiences locally and globally. All you have to do is click on the link in the show notes and join the Telegram group so that you'll be able to connect and interact with other listeners, and write to us if you want to get featured as a podcast guest. We are waiting to hear from you. Thank you for being such a wonderful listener. Thank you.